We're looking at question 47 on the AP Statistics Midterm Review Packet, and you can see there's a lot of words. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and focus on the context. If I look at the second sentence, it says, the study found that children who watch more television tend to have lower reading scores than children who watch fewer hours of television. That's context. And then we also have, it says that hours of television watched explain 9% of the observed variation in the reading scores of the 125 subjects. So those are the two contexts that I'm looking for in this problem. Now I'm going to focus on that orange one a little bit first because that is something that tells me the direction. If you're being told that scores are decreasing as the hours are increasing, that's a negative correlation. And the reason why that's important is because I can cross out options A and C right away. So by reading that, and as I read it, making a note of what type of correlation, positive or negative, what type of direction exists, I might be able to eliminate choices, which, by the way, is very useful because choice C is one of the trick answers here. So do you notice how a lot of times with multiple choices, if you understand the context or understand certain characteristics as you're reading, you might be able to eliminate some of the trick choices. Now I'm going to focus on the blue. The hours of television watched explains 9% of the observed variation in reading scores of the 125 subjects. That to me sounds like how we interpret R squared. So even though this problem is not asking us, how do you interpret your R squared, I'm going to. So how do you interpret the coefficient of determination or proportion of variability? This is what you do. We could look at it as our stems, blank percent of the variation in the values of your y variables explained by the least squares regression line of your x, of y and x. You have the three different stems there. So keep this in mind. So even though this problem is not asking us to interpret R squared, it's giving us R squared. And that's why it's important for us to understand how to interpret. It's because they can use that language in the prompts. And that's what's going on here. Hours of television watched explain 9%. That's your R squared. So that tells me my R squared is 0.09, which means I'm going to take the square root of that. Now, if I take a square root of 0.09, I'm going to get positive or negative 0.3, and there's where the important thing comes in mind. When you square root both sides of an equation, you have to realize you can be dealing with the positive or you can be dealing with the negative of that. And notice how choice C was positive 0.3. And choice D is negative 0.3. And so there's that trick. These options are, do you understand what direction the relationship is? Does it have a positive or does it have a negative correlation? In this case, it had a negative correlation, which means our answer is going to be D. So always keep in mind. Now in this one, by the way, you were told negative correlation based off of a sentence. Another way you can be told if it has a positive direction or a negative direction is based off of the slope when it comes to a Minitab output or a computer output. That is another way to keep in mind what the direction is in case you're ever given R squared and asked to find R. So hopefully this helped you with our question 47.